everything like that. Because I'm just going to give this other article that was part of that same article, but from a different perspective. Apparently, they interviewed a woman named Kat Murphy, a college student that had wanted to be a journalist since they were 11. I can relate to that, by the way. Many of their friends don't understand why, when they engage with the news, if they do, they hear a cacophony of voices. They don't know who to believe. Reporters are biased. They make mistakes. Besides, why would you hitch your future to a dying industry? And there's a lot of commentaries what this person says. Oh, good for you. Look at what you're walking into. You're going to be screaming into the void. You're going to be useless, said Murphy, a 21-year-old graduate student at the University of Maryland's journalism school. She is undeterred, and is also why she's not surprised by the findings of a study this fall that documented negative attitudes towards the news media among 13 to 18-year-olds. So apparently they use words like bias, crazy, boring, fake, bad, depressing, confusing, and scary. So they don't know why anybody would go into this particular field, and they're trying to get on Kat's case for going into this field. So what do you have any of your students that are journalists, Dr. Sharif? And if so, are they proud to go into the field and they want to study journalism?
Yeah, journalism actually very popular thing in South Asia. Very very popular things. Even if you see that Bangladesh media, there are a lot of media they are growing. Beside that, the institutional media like Bangladesh televisions, just last week they take one of my interview, and ATN Bangla, like private channel, Channel I, private channels, and Prothom Alo or Daily Stars, they are very popular channels and media. Beside that, they are developing what it called. Uh, there are many grassroots level journalists also, those who use social media and they become the journalist and all of the things. And there are a lot of social media influential in our community. But honestly speaking, how social media developing, really want to respect. But I really like one of the method of China said, okay, if you want to be journalist or if you want to be influential, I do not have problem, but you have to be expert of these things. There are a lot of misinformation and disinformation in social media. So how China is regulating that, okay, you can bring all of your idea, your informations and everything in social media, but you need university certificates. That is important, I believe, because without the subject matter expert, if I bring all of the idea and information and everything, and some point lot of misinformation and disinformation, this is important. So I believe that USA, even Pot TV and World Talent Economy Forum can work together for solving this misinformation and disinformations. And beside that, educating the journalist. This is very, very important. Right now, everyone journalist, but knowledge is very important. Yeah.
Mm. What's your take on that, Chris? Because that is one of the things that the article was talking about, was that the journalists didn't help themselves with mistakes or ethical lapses that make headlines, and there is a lot of opinionated journalism. Even on this network, we've talked about the Fox versus the um, News Nation, or some of the other ones that might be one on the conservative or one on the liberal side, if I can use those kind of terms and everything like that. But what is your take when there's a lot of opinionated journalism?
Well, first of all, I need to redouble on Dr. Sharif. So, Dr. Sharif, when you were a teenager, and I realize, Jatovia, I'm kind of putting this. It's not the teenager of today, but it's closer though. When I was a teenager, we had ABC, CBS, NBC. That was it. I mean, and cable. That was, or not cable, but UHF. That was basically our deal. But um, and I was lucky. I had Walter Cronkite and Huntley Brentley. We had news, and it was interesting because of Vietnam era. So it was really, really investigative journalism done really, really well, and embedded stuff. So that was a real interesting aspect. But Dr. Sharif, when you were a teenager, you're interested in space, right? You're interested in space type aspects. When did you first? When did you like? Oh, I really want to do space stuff. Was it because of news, or was it because of movies, or was it because of books, or was it because what drove you towards that?
If you ask me, my teenagers, if I choose this path, definitely book. because that time social media or media do not have strong influence in Bangladesh. So definitely book. Yeah.
Okay, so what book? And I don't care if it was Jules Verne or Dudna or whatever else. What book really drove you towards that?
Okay. If you ask me for Bangladesh experience, definitely I grow in Bangladesh when I was in teenager. There is a popular writer. It's called Humayun Ahmed. He bring all of the innovative thoughts and innovative things and everything. And I'm a big fan of this writer, and I regularly read this kind of book. And beside that, honestly speaking, I have a very keen interest about politics, about policy, and that's why I choose the path of debating when I was teenager. So American debate, especially presidential debate, even though I'm from a very small city, it's called Rajbari, uh, I have a very I actually inspired by the presidential debate in USA. It's make a huge impact in my life.
So, and it's interesting. So, Jatovi, back to you, right? So, what I hear Dr. Sharif saying is number one, books, right? Because he didn't have the exposure to the different aspects that our kids are exposed to here, right? I mean, all the social media, instantaneous news, influencers, which basically are marketers, basically are salespeople, but they call them influencers. But basically, that's what they're doing. They're getting inundated with a lot of different pieces of information at any one time, plus AI, right, which is kicking in high gear. In Dr. Sharif's case, it was books mainly, and the presidential debates, which are televised. So he was actually influenced by both books and television, um, in a journalistic sense, because debates. I realize that debates now are more entertainment than anything else, but part of that is informational aspects of candidates and those types of things. And I think what we're doing is we're cheating the teenager today of out of things that that I was exposed to, that you know they're exposed to so much, and so they know this much but this wide, right? So it's like
Completely
they're like this
disagree.
polymorph, right?
I completely disagree. The reason being is I think you're generalizing something based off of just taking Dr. Sharif and saying, hey, this is what we all did. Do you know right now when you talked about science, if you look up one of the greatest scientists or one of the biggest people in science right now, Neil deGrasse Tyson. Do you know what Neil deGrasse Tyson was profoundly impacted by? A movie. So if you're saying that Dr. Sharif, he does books and oh my gosh, and all this stuff, but then forget that Neil deGrasse Tyson, he was profoundly impacted by a movie. No, I think what you're doing is trying to make a narrative around a situation that really, it's hard to say what impacts everybody. You can't just generalize and say that, hey, look, we're cheating our kids now because they're only learning from this and that and the other thing. I agree with you. The reason that they're distrusting the news is because they found another outlet that they deal with, which they are, yes, inundated with a lot of individuals because, yes, it's fun to go on TikTok. It's fun to go on social media. It's fun to go on YouTube. It's much easier there. But also our students still go out and still learn those things. If they get influenced, say, for example, there's a kid out there, Adam Mocklear. He's starting to become big in terms of being a political reporter. Well, he goes into these other avenues and reads all these different things. But then you have people who follow another political reporter on YouTube's Destiny. Destiny started out just doing Twitch streams of League of Legends, but they both speak in the same vernacular when they're talking about all the politics that are around, but they speak in different ways about it. And people follow their paths differently and become inspired by these individuals, decide to research how they want to research. Both are extremely intelligent. Both are a lot younger than us. And they're really doing their thing. Both make millions of dollars being actual political influencers. Influencers really are, there's a difference with, and that's another generalization. Yes, influencers deal with a lot of marketing. Why? Because they get followers. They have a legitimate following. And it wasn't following because, hey, I'm trying to sell you something. It's, hey, we're doing the same thing, trying to find followers using this. This is what we are, technically influencers, but we're not selling things in that same general sense that you're trying to place those influencers that the people are following or the people that watch that are youth. So our generalization and looking at, I think what it is we have an old school mentality. We don't understand what kids are actually going through, what they are inundated with, because we weren't. When we were growing up, we had, oh, well, we can read this book. We can read this newspaper. Oh, we can only watch ABC News at this particular time. That's when Walter Cronkite's going to come on and tell me everything that I need to know. But that's not it.
So my friends and I were so dumb in high school. We had so little information. In 9th grade, my coolest friend, who actually had a shot of like making out with a girl, called a meeting of several friends to discuss what is the clitoris? Where is it? We had now that would be
it's
like
a plant. Yeah, it's a plant that grows up. Oh, it's clematis. Yeah, whatever. Okay.
We didn't know
it's at the end of the rainbow.
One thing that I find boggling, like I didn't see hardcore porn until I was like 13 or 14 years old. And even that was too soon. It was very disturbing. Well,
wait a minute. I want to make I need to make an observation. First of all, Rick, boy, thank God you had a friend. I thought for sure, that you've had more than one, which is great. I think that's great. Number two is Jacoby. I noticed you're getting gray. You're getting gray there. Is that your exposure on the TV, or is that are we getting because you're getting to look as gray as Rick. This is not good. You need to guys, look, just a little bit of dye and it's just silver. See, mine's silver. See, Mark is silver, and Dr. Sharif, he has no gray whatsoever. I mean, it's just like the guy is just young at heart.
There was a time
I'm a little jealous. Here, Rick. How did you get through Channel 98? Mine was always wavy every time I tried to look at it.
I kept, we didn't have descramblers, illegal descramblers, until I was already an adult. And I would just keep hitting the button. And every time it would descramble for like half a second. And then hit it again. Half a second, half a second, half a second.
So you get a half a second of porn and everything. But I did have a question for you, because you said that there was hardcore porn. But I remember a book, and it was literally a book, and some people considered that hardcore and everything. So did you have the copy of Candy? Because some people considered Candy to be hardcore, even though
we had another book.
Candy was hardcore. You paying the right amount of money.
In 4th grade, a kid found a paperback without a cover on the schoolyard. Now, it's weird. Throughout recent history, perverts will drive by a school and throw porn onto the schoolyard. I don't know what their deal is, but a kid found a Victorian book called The Pearl, which was the craziest, hardcorest written material. And a teacher walking across the playground saw a poor, beat up paperback book without a cover. And she brought it in and thought maybe the book could be saved. She didn't look what was in it. She left it on her desk. I'm sure
the kids found it, but Rick,
we had found it and we passed it around. It was a little too early for us. It made us too knowledgeable too soon.
But I do have a question that we brought up on your show this morning, because it was literally this morning and everything like that. But I do have a question to hear what our panelists think, and maybe Nick will jump up in the background. But we came up with this idea of going the Girl Scout route and everything like that. So in terms of getting viewers for this network. So I think that we said we were going to try to get Nick and Kim to sponsor by getting cookies that we were then going to give away.
Right. So this came about, this discussion came about because for my show, I brought in a couple cookies printed with a name. We went to a movie screening. And after the screening, they gave out cookies with the name of the movie to get you to vote for it when it comes award time, for Oscars and Golden Globes. And yeah, it would be great to have Naked at Night cookies, but where are we going to give them out? That's the trouble. We can't ship the cookie to every viewer.
Hold hold on, Rick. That's the easy part to figure out where you're trying to ship them out. My question comes in: what shape are those cookies gonna be? I mean, you're talking about making it.
It's like, no, you'd pay extra for a crazy shape. It would just be a regular. The cheapest cookie is just going to be a round freaking cookie. But yeah, I can see where that could get
so
out.
the cookies are not going to be shaped either in a figure 8 or in a 69 and everything along those lines, because those could be the shapes of the cookies and everything.
Make sure you mold the cookie just right, Rick. Mold that cookie. Rub it perfectly so it goes shaped great.
I don't know if cookies are the best way to increase viewership. We added a pretty woman to our show, and that doubled at least our viewership. But I don't know how you do cookies.
Are you putting icing on the cookies?
Jesus.
All right.
Dr. Sharif, I'm sorry for my compatriots. It's just, I'm sorry. I apologize. When you get to 70, you just stop that. I don't know what it is. It's just like you don't even think about it anymore. It's like,
never grow up. But Chris, we're going to get back to the media since we still got about another 26 minutes. And
Please.
This is actually going to be a serious topic, 26 minutes that we've got left and everything like that. But apparently, our favorite person, and I'm being sarcastic, I know that you sometimes like some of his views and everything, Chris, but apparently Trump is ramping up on reporter attack with the White House media bias tracker. So he's on the White House webpage, they presented a hall of shame for news reports that the president disagrees with. So apparently if we put out maybe even one of these reports, he will have a wall of shame. So what are our thoughts around this wall of shame that is on the White House page? So it's literally on the White House page.
Well, you know what's going to happen is there are going to be journalists, there's going to be press people that are going to want their name on the wall of shame. They're going to actually like get there, and if they do, they're going to be like, all right, I made it, the Hall of Shame, yay. It's like, it's all Trump all the time. This guy is a massive manipulator of he loves his name in any way, shape, or form out there. That is, to me, to him, free press, good or bad, doesn't make any difference. If it's, and I know that this would be really hard to do because there's not a news agency that would do it. But if they just ignored him for a week, not even mention his name, it would drive him crazy. Literally up the wall. Like, how come you're not mentioning my name? Why aren't you mentioning my name? I'm president of the United States. Why aren't you doing this? I would just go round and round and round. But they haven't learned. Like, he loves the attention, loves it, good or bad.
I've yet to see a journalist ask him a disrespectful question. I would be interested. Like, he's always calling people piggy and shut up piggy, and it's like, I would love to see somebody. They'd never be invited to the White House again. I just want to see his reaction if somebody said, "You're calling people piggy, but you're fat yourself. So what's the deal?" President fat. Like, what would happen? I'm sure he would explode, but it would be interesting video.
Well, Rick, I was going to call you Smarty Pants, but I just decided no, I'm not going to do that. But you are Smarty Pants.
Apparently, he's identified the Washington Post, CBS News.
I'm trying to answer Mark, but he brought us to the serious part.
Yes.
The worst part about it is that because that is more dictatorial and authoritarian style, and what's going on in other countries of making particular enemies in the media, or making particular organizations and particular individuals in the media targets and considering them enemies to the state and so on and so forth. That becomes more propaganda-ish. That becomes more dictatorial and authoritarian, which we should all push back against. But the sad part is we normalize it, and it just continues to get worse and worse. So, yeah.
How does people make it on the repeat offender list? Because they named some of the ones, and that's where I was going on. They named MSNBC, and which he calls recently rebranded as Miss Now, and then CNN, CBS News, and the Washington Post. But when it comes to the repeat offenders are people like, and I just named one of them, but it was Politico, which I get that's a Politico magazine, New York Times, BBC, and People. People is basically like, isn't People still basically entertainment news?
If you don't say praising words about Trump, Trump thinks you're an enemy. That's it.
Also, a People magazine reporter about 10 years ago claimed that Trump sexually assaulted her. So I assume that reports of that have appeared in People magazine itself. More than 2 dozen women have accused Trump of sexual harassment or assault, and that includes a People magazine reporter.
Okay, because I was trying to figure that out, because I am correct in thinking that People is basically just a entertainment magazine, because I would think of People as like The Old Life and People and a couple of other ones that are entertainment oriented and everything like that. But it's been a minute since I picked up a copy of People, so.
Yeah, no, I mean, yeah, it's ridiculous. I mean, he put up a wall of presidents just to make a joke about Biden. He put up portraits of all 46, 47 presidents across history so far, except one of them, the Biden one, just says auto pen and has a picture of the auto pen contraption. So he's and this is along an entire portico. It runs for 75 feet along the outside of the White House. There's no decorum there.
Yeah, no decorum at all.
We can debate about whether we need decorum anymore.
Well, speaking of decorum, and that's where I was going to go, and I was just curious because I remember growing up, I did like to read the Reader's Digest. I did pick up Time and Newsweek and things along those lines, and would read the various ones. I did pick up People. I'm going to be perfectly honest. Part of the reason I picked up People is because, and Chris, you'll love this, People had a good crossword puzzle, and it was fun to do that crossword puzzle within People and everything like that, because it was fairly easy. It wasn't the New York Times. That was the other reason I liked it. It was a much easier crossword puzzle than, say, the New York Times one and everything like that. But I was just wondering, which magazines did you read, and do you still read those magazines? And I will not lie, I did pick up copies of some of the Playboys and Penthouses.
Playboy had a great 3-part article on Howard Hughes. It was great. So I had to pick it up for 3 months in a row. I told my wife, I said, look, I got to get the part 2 of Howard Hughes. This is what I'm reading. And I showed her, look, this is Howard Hughes. And she, and she said, okay, Chris, that's fine. You can, so I read the 3-parter of Howard Hughes. Now, dadgummit, I got to get the 3rd part, and it was a part 3 deal. I mean, it was very, very interesting. I mean, it had some military connotations in there. I was trying to keep up with news aspects about Howard Hughes. So I throw that out there. And I did get, when I was stationed overseas in Italy in the 1970s, we didn't have computers. We didn't have PCs. We had computers, but not PCs. We didn't have like cell phones and all that stuff. So I got Newsweek, but the Newsweek I got was like a week behind whatever else. And I got Time. I got Time and Newsweek, which was really good. And I'd go to the library and pick up papers or do whatever I could, could keep up with in the United States. But I never saw one single episode of what's the one with Robin Williams, Nanu, what's that called? Mork and Mindy.
Mork and Mindy.
I never saw it, because by the time I was back from Europe, it was the season was off. It was gone. And I was sitting there going, and they were going, Nanu. I said, what are you talking about? Nanu. And they go, Chris, where you been, under a rock? I said, well, close. I was over in southern Italy, in the middle of an artichoke field. But yeah, I was pretty much there for 2.5 years. And they said, yeah, it's Mork and Mindy. I said, Mork and what? They said, what? I said, what the hell kind of thing? They said, Chris, you got to sit down and watch this thing, and summer reruns or whatever it was. I said, okay, fine. I watched it and I thought, well, this was kind of interesting. I'm sorry I missed it, but we didn't have that overseas. So that, but I didn't get People. I got Time and I got Newsweek. And those actually were really, really good magazines. And I was in intelligence at the time. So that was considered open source intelligence, it's still called open source intelligence. OSINT is what they call it. OSINT now, open source intelligence, which is anything other than that which is classified. So anything that you pick up in a newspaper or on social media or whatever else, you can consider open source intelligence. But yeah,
did you get Mad Magazine? That's for both you and
yes,
Rick.
yes, I did. I got it when it was good. I got it when it was really, really good. And my brother sent me a whole back issues and all that stuff, and of course I didn't get it till like 2 weeks later. But I mean, I would keep up with Mad Magazine. Good magazine.
I had every issue of Mad Magazine ever published, and I lost them in a fire.
Oh, wow.
Oh, Rick, I'm so sorry. Oh my gosh, I want to cry.
I couldn't complain though, because the rest of my family lost so much more. All I lost were some magazines.
Sure.
Hey, Jacoby, I'm gonna just put us out there and everything like that, because there was another popular magazine that I also used to read, and some people read this magazine for the articles because it was a small magazine. But let's be very honest, it also had a great photo array in the middle of it, including a model. So yes, I would not lie, I did pick up Jet for the models and everything like that, because Jet did have some wonderful models in the middle of it and all along those sides. So I don't know if that was you as well. So yeah, I picked up Jet sometimes for the models.
I like how you were honest and said you didn't pick up Jet for the articles on the inside. You picked up Jet for the model that was in the middle.
I
read Jet.
All the words. Let me spin to
It was good. I mean, I like Jet.
Yeah, Jet was good, and Ebony was good.
Yeah.
So when I was a kid, Playboy magazines were like gold. They were not easily available, and one kid in my group figured out, we were in a college town, that you wanted to dumpster dive at the frat houses in late May when they were cleaning out their rooms going home, and we found some Playboys that way.
Yeah.
And when I was in the Air Force, I was at one point, it's kind of a sad story, but it's got a reason for I'm saying it. I was a summary court officer when I was a second lieutenant. And summary court officer, if somebody dies on your base, they make you a summary court officer, which means you have to act as that person. You have to pay off their bills. You have to make sure that they, whatever insurance money they get is either given back to the family or paying off bills or whatever else. And you have to pack the person out as if you were that person. And the one thing they always told us was, get rid of the magazines, get rid of the Playboys, get rid of the Penthouses, get rid of all that stuff. You don't want that going back in a box to their family and then them opening it up and them having an other than, pristine memory of this individual. So I thought that was a really good way of the military handling that type of thing. And, it was, and I
particularly
write
some of
to
those
the family
magazines,
and all that.
Yeah, and particularly some of those magazines were a little bit raunchier, so you definitely didn't want them getting Hustler or Club or anything like that. So that might be even worse than getting a copy of Playboy or Penthouse, because those were mild pictures.
In the early 70s, a men's magazine arms race began. It was kind of like Johnny Carson owned Late Night for 15 years, and then Letterman came along. So Playboy owned the men's magazine market for, I don't know, from the 50s into the 60s. But in the late 60s, these other magazines popped up saying, we are going to show you more than Playboy shows you. And that was Penthouse and Hustler, and then a ton of them.
Yep, there was a lot of them. Like I said, I mentioned Club. There was a couple of other ones as well. I don't remember all their names, including some that were geared toward certain minority communities. I think there was one called Players, if I remember correctly.
Hold on. Let me just say this. I just want to say this, which is really hilarious. Just want to let y'all know. Right now, it is killing me because this is just so funny. If you think about the conversation, we are literally going through Mark Lee's porn collection.
I never said I had that collection. Don't go there.
Gosh, I had no idea. I'm really glad you brought that out, Jacoby, because I would have never known.
No, never said that. Don't go there.
Now you listed it. Now I get to go throw up.
But there were certain ones that I never had, and everything might have had family members.
So I
did have a question for Rick, because there was speaking to his arms race, there was a very popular magazine that was even at the stores and the grocery stores, and I think part of it was that you had to use your imagination because there weren't as many pictures, and that was the whole notion of Penthouse Forum, which is actually supposedly these stories of sexual encounters and everything like that. But it was actually,
Dear Penthouse Forum, I
But-
never thought this would happen to me. I was studying at the library late at night. Yeah, they all begin,
I was going to say, this sounds like Rick. Were you writing under a pseudonym, like I am big or something? Or I mean, what? This is Rick. I wouldn't,
No, my brother liked the stories. I liked the pictures, so we had. But often it wasn't the magazines you had; it was the magazines your dad had in his nightstand.
But how many of those stories were real? That's the point that I think that Chris was trying to get
None of
to.
them were real.
But most of those things I think were totally made up encounters, totally made up.
Of course
things
they were. Of course they were. I remember one of my high school classmates wrote an article and shipped it in, and they published it. It was about some guy. I mean, he was like, I said, "Oh my God!" He says, "Yeah, man." He says, "I got published." I said, "You got a published article?" He goes, "Yeah, Penthouse Forum." I said, "What?" I said, he said, yeah, look. And he showed me the draft, and then he showed me the article. It was like, oh my gosh, it was like word for word. I said, oh, Rick, I can't. His name was Rick, by the way. Not Rick, not you.
What people younger than us don't realize is how little porn there was in the world. Adam Carolla has a joke that his grandpa, to get any stimulation, had to go find a hill and lie on his back and wait until a sexy shaped cloud drifted
Not
by.
the sexy shaped cloud.
There was, now, I mean, it's a horrible cornucopia on every computer. But back then, no, it was.
I wouldn't know.
Well, I mean, that comes back to the modern day world, because aren't there a lot of people that are making money off of OnlyFans by being scantily clad? I told you that I saw one probably about a year and a half ago, and she literally was just walking around her swimming pool in their apartment complex and everything like that. That was her OnlyFans.
And that address was, Mark?
Yeah. What's the name
What
of it?
was the address again, Mark? That I just
I'd argue that this is a good thing, because 30, 40, 50 years ago, if you were in porn, it was because you had an abusive husband or boyfriend. Maybe you both had a drug problem. Maybe he was a biker and he pushed you into it. Linda Lovelace, the most famous actor of the early porn era, was the victim of horrible abuse. She was forced to do all this stuff. Now with OnlyFans, I think there's much less abuse, and you have more OnlyFans who are basically small business people making money off of, sexy pictures. And there are more OnlyFans. There are more people who generate content on OnlyFans than there are cops or doctors in the United States.
Well, I didn't realize that. But isn't the problem with OnlyFans, which we ran into with Duke University and everything?
Hold on, Mark. Just to really point out the thing about OnlyFans, there is a dark side of OnlyFans, which we talk always about the happy side of OnlyFans, of these jokes about the people walking around making the money doing this. Well, if you talk about the amount of people, how you just stated, the amount of cops and everything else across the U.S. I mean, there are millions of people on OnlyFans. There are only a few people that have actually made money.
Yeah, most people don't make beans.
And then if you look at it that way, and you're talking about a lot of individuals on OnlyFans end up self-conscious. They have body issues. Some have committed suicide. There's a very, very dark side to OnlyFans that we really don't take into account, even though it is, when OnlyFans tried to pull the sexual side off of it, that nearly killed OnlyFans. So
OnlyFans put a ceiling on how porny things could be, and that didn't last.
Jacoby, isn't there a dark side to TikTok too? Because I've seen some very
there's a dark side,
kind of like people that are concerned about what's going on TikTok, but I've also seen a lot of people that are doing that whole eBay thing, which you don't really want to see, and it can drive you crazy because it's basically like it's becoming a selling clearinghouse and everything like that. So that's all over TikTok.
There's a dark side to TikTok. There's a dark side to Facebook. There's a dark side to Twitch. Yeah, online. So the tough part about online is you have anonymity, and because people have anonymity, you can be this giant keyboard warrior and attack anybody and everybody, and nobody will know who's doing it. And that's where a lot of people end up getting into trouble because one, you have people because they're self-conscious about their body. A lot of people, when they're putting this stuff out on Twitch, they're opening up a vulnerability. And if that vulnerability gets attacked in the wrong way, which a lot of people end up doing, those keyboard warriors, because they can go in anonymity, it causes a lot of mental problems.
But
I think-
hold on a second. I do want to
but I
get you.
think-
I want to get to both of you and everything. But the flip side of that is that there isn't as much anonymity as people think there is. Because I think about the young lady from Duke. I think about other people that are doing these things, and even some of the OnlyFans people, and they're thinking that they are being totally anonymous and everything like that, and then their co-workers or their college schoolmates, as in the case with the Duke person, and everything will expose them. So there's a lot of this kind of like, you think that you're anonymous, but you're not as anonymous as you think you are.
The anonymity comes from the people. Like if you look at the people in the chat who put up in the public chat, do you know who they are? No, you don't. They could be roughly about anybody, but that individual or those individuals or those bots could continually and constantly attack an individual on OnlyFans, leading to self-conscious problems, self-doubt, suicide, a whole bunch of depression. There's a lot of problems with online stuff. That anonymity is huge.
So beyond tech disrupts everything, and tech gives people financial opportunities, but a lot of them are crappy opportunities. My wife volunteers at the library book sale, and how would that be like disrupted by tech? Because they hold the sale, they let the early birds in, and the early birds are eBay book dealers, and they have a scanner, and they hit every book title, and it tells them how much can they sell this book for. They're going to buy the book for $1. They could sell it on eBay for $5. They swoop in and they grab all the books that are worth anything, and it leads to like rancor and people arguing, and because of tech.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean it's interesting. And Rick, I think that with this porn stuff, the bottom line is this: the porn industry has introduced many of the things within the internet that are now considered commonplace. They introduced video, they introduced pictures, they introduced audio, they introduced a lot of things within the system because they kind of had the carte blanche to do that. And all of a sudden, everyone else picked up on it and used it for legitimate purpose. Well, more
But
legitimate.
you're right,
purposes,
porn
I guess.
propels
So,
tech.
It does. It really does. I mean, it's sad.
There's a related rule, Rule 34. If it exists, there is porn of it. Like if you go online, if you want to see like The Simpsons doing horrible stuff, if Family Guy, Pokemon, just anything. Yeah, you don't have to look hard.
It's not accidental. A friend of mine has gone to Vegas a number of times because that's not a city that I've been to except for once and everything. But they have gone in, I won't say it's in January, maybe it's in February, but they've gone because the computer geeks and the porn awards are on the same month and everything. And I want to say the same week and everything, and they almost do that intentionally.
Honestly, you don't even have to tie it to that, Mark. You can look at we were joking about your porn collection. You said you bought Jet magazine because you looked at the people in the middle. That's essentially the same thing. Sex sells.
No, sex definitely sells.
That's what pushed a lot of the market in the internet, and as Rick pointed out, a lot of the technology that's out there, sex sells.
Yep. Well, I mean, I didn't mean to throw this in there, Mark, right at the end here, but that's okay. This is just data. This is just data from the U.S. government on healthcare spending in the U.S. So what I did was I put population in here of the United States, 1960, 70, 80, 90, 2000, 2010, 2020 from the census, and then I saw the healthcare spending, and this is the healthcare spending. It shoots up like crazy, right? This is 1960 here, so 1960 to 2000, the 2020 here. But the percent increase goes down. And that was the interesting part about the data was the percent increase in healthcare spending actually went down. It had that equalization here around 2000, and then 2010, 2020, it went down. So
the people who support Obamacare, that's their argument.
And I kind of get that from the data point. Like I don't like Obamacare, but the data, when you look at the data actually supports Obamacare. So it's like, no wonder people are, saying, hey, look at the data. And that's what I always try to do. I have my opinions. And then what I do is I try to go out and I look at the data, and I try not to bias it, but I try to make it very government approach, like census, healthcare.gov, or not healthcare.gov, but the healthcare area, which is National Institutes of Health and all that. And then I put it together, and all of a sudden it's like, I can't sit there and say, well, this is wrong. I mean, the calculations are correct and everything is good. And you're right, Rick. It looks like here there's a percentage decrease. I mean, now I didn't take into consideration taxation, the taxable aspect on that, which is, taxpayers are actually subsidizing Obamacare. But if the healthcare spending goes down, does that benefit me as a taxpayer? I don't know. You could make that argument.
Yeah,
but anyways,
and the thing that nobody talks about except me is that good, like, medicine was cheap when medicine sucked in the 50s. You would die from frickin' everything, but it didn't cost very much for doctors. Now we can add 10, 20, 30 years of healthy life to people, but you're going to pay for it. Ozempic. There are 150 million people who are obese in America. We can save them all, but it's going to cost them $500 a month.
Yeah.
As we get ready to wrap up and everything,
yeah,
like Toby and all along those lines.
This
and
is
everything.
really a lot of fun, guys. Thanks.
Yeah, this has been a lot of fun, and I was just going to close out with a little fun as well, because at least in the olden days, as Jacoby would call it, and everything like that, there was this notion of imagination. Because even with the bikini model that we were talking about on Jet, I was having to imagine what they looked like, because they were in a bikini and everything like that. But there was not a whole notion of. And now it seems like there isn't much left to the imagination. So I just wanted your take on that, because it doesn't seem like there's much left to the imagination in the younger generation. And
so I imagine, because I've been looking at naked ladies now for 55 years. I imagine there's a little spot in my brain that is just completely burnt out from overstimulation. It's just like the neurons are like
imagination. Do you guys realize how creative these kids have gotten for sex? I mean, you got people dressed in outfits, doing all this crazy stuff you could never do in the Kama Sutra. I mean, there's the evolution out there.
Yeah, when I worked on a TV show, we went to a furry convention because to see what they got up to. But they have
you seen? Now, Rick, you do the technology thing. Overseas they've got actually even now, where you can buy a piece, evidently, and connect it to somebody else's piece via the internet. And hey, now you're playing with somebody.
It's a stupid term. Somebody's gonna have to come up with a better term. Teledildonics.
Teledildonics.
Yeah.
So you want to talk about creativity? There you go. Yeah. Imagination. Hey.
Yeah, and just wait till we have chips in our head, and you want to, people will be matched.
Well, chips in our heads and all that. One thing that was talked about during Thanksgiving, it wasn't about sex, thank goodness, because I don't know that I would want to hear that from family members and everything like that. But we're talking about the vacuum cleaners that are now shaped because one of my relatives apparently has a robotic cat. They even to the point of rubbing the cat, because apparently the cat has a realistic fur, and they were talking about the robot dogs and the robot kind of like vacuum cleaners and stuff like that. So I guess people that are allergic or don't want the real thing.
All right. Let's bring it back to sex. There is a robotic brothel in Berlin, Germany, and I'm sure the robots are terrible, like the dialogue, but you can. It's probably stocked with these $2,000 silicon love dolls with the talking attachments, and you can get them to talk dirty to you while you're so.
Before I wrap it up, just tell me, I mean, you've got real dogs, and I know that my brother's got real dogs. Would you even bother getting a robotic dog? Because when I heard about this robotic cat that somebody had, and I like cats and dogs, I'm going like, why?
Nope, not at all. I ain't getting no robotic dog.
Or a robotic cat or any other robotic critter.
Not yet. I mean, but maybe in 10 years when they have full personalities.
The regular ones have full personalities.
They do, but then they also you only get 15 years with them if you're lucky, and it's and also there's poop and pee every place.
Well, that is
and
an
often
issue.
vomit.
Yeah, that is an issue. We did have to deal with that during the holidays and everything like that. So that is true. You don't have to deal with that with the robotic ones for sure.
All right.
See,
I will see
also,
you guys tomorrow morning.
All right. See you tomorrow morning.
You were going to say also, and then I'm going to hit the.
Just to bring it back to what the whole day has been about in terms of healthcare. Just to let you know, Mark, Cigna. Anybody who's uninsured or who's insured by Cigna will have to pay out of pocket or have to pay out of network costs for care from UNC Health hospitals, clinics, and doctors until a deal is reached. This is why we need universal health care.
We do need universal health care, and I'm still thinking that we need health care for the basics, like what do you call them? Your daily physical or your yearly physical and your yearly dental care, which you should be doing, or at least every certain, whatever the standard is. You know that more than I do. What is the standard? It's supposed to be every year or every 2 years? For the dental?
Year.
Every year, right.
Oh, for the dental? Yeah, every 6 months.
Every 6 months, you're supposed to get dental care, every dental physical, because I know
I think it is every 6 months.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't keep up with it. Yeah, I think it is every 6 months.
Wow.
Or whatever the dentist requires, but I think it's every 6 months is a basic.
Cool. Well, on that note, because I know you've got dental people in your family and everything like that, and I know I'm way overdue. But on that note, we're going to get on out of here, and I will catch you on the flip side. By the way, are you coming to the open house tomorrow? Then I'm going to get out of here.
That's a good question. I don't know.
Okay. It's 12 to 6. Hopefully, we'll see you there.
All right.
Later.